Hi, Fieldwork students. I wanted to take a minute to give you an update. You probably saw my announcement posted that we're getting ready to make field placements, and I actually have a site ready, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first, I wanted to give a little more information about expectations during fieldwork to make sure we're on the same page. So this fieldwork, the goal is, or the expectation really, is to complete 96 hours of fieldwork. And previously, before the pandemic, that would always be during the second half of the semester, and we had set aside specifically time in the mornings from 7:30 to 11:30-ish, where students would be in a site, and that's when they would complete their hours over about 6 weeks. And so that's what we did before. So now, because it's the pandemic and you are completely remote, things look a little bit different. The first thing is that we are not bound to that schedule. So you don't need to just do your fieldwork hours in the morning, regardless of when you start. So that's different. And we have the freedom to start earlier. So I would like to clarify that I wouldn't want to make anybody start during the first half of the semester if they don't want to, because you planned your schedule as if you would be starting at the end. And I know some of you have 8-week classes during the first part of the semester. So that has always been the case for most of our students. So I understand that. But we have some flexibility to start earlier because we are remote. And so there are some advantages that I want to outline so that you have all the information when you make a decision as I post about these sites. So fieldwork tasks during remote fieldwork look a little bit different. So it's still very similar to what students were doing when they're out in the field, but you don't need to physically be in the school. So that means that you could have some direct hours where you're meeting with students or with your cooperating teacher that are similar in many ways to if you were working with small groups or one-on-one out in the field in a school setting. But when we are teaching online, we spend a lot of time outside of the classroom getting our teaching materials ready. So I know this is also the case to some extent for face-to-face teaching as well, but we do even more of it with online. So there's more preparation outside of the setting. There are often materials that you put together for online teaching, like this video right here, where you are putting together the lecture, the information for your students to watch later. And so you could be making this at 10 p.m., you could be making it at noon, you could be making it a week ahead of time or the night before you want your students to watch it. So that looks a little bit different. So you could be logging fieldwork hours while you do these tasks, such as make videos, make assignments, make online modules for your students, preparing the materials that you'll use when you meet with your students, grading their stuff that they submit online. Could be happening at any time of day. And so we're not stuck to that 7:30 to 11:30 a.m. And so even though the first half of the semester you might have classes or your work schedule might be such that you feel like you don't have a ton of daytime hours, you could potentially still begin fieldwork if you wanted to. The advantage to starting fieldwork earlier, I'm hoping that we're able to do that for most of us, because I think it will actually work better while we're doing remote, is that you can spread your 96 hours across however many weeks we have. So the problem we ran into last semester is that the shorter the fieldwork period, which for some students it got pretty short and that was out of their control, not their fault at all, but it got pretty short, and then that's a lot of hours to try to put in each day. And you're definitely not going to be meeting with students in most cases 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day. Most schools will have a couple hours a day that are student meeting hours, and then a lot of time that's spent on the grading, the preparation, possibly videos, possibly online module materials. There could be exceptions. There are some schools that are synchronous and are meeting a lot, but again, you wouldn't necessarily need to meet for every class all throughout the day. So I wanted to give that information. So you might feel like you don't have a ton of time now for getting started early, but you still might want to consider it, because you might be able to meet during the day with students for a couple hours, and then you might have some things you do, maybe in the evening that you put together, and you would be logging all those hours so that you don't have to get so many in at the end of the semester. So something to consider. I mentioned in the announcement that I will be posting information sometimes when sites are ready to start early so that you can let me know if you want to start early. And so I did that for our first site. Our first site is a fourth grade virtual class with a teacher who is an excellent teacher, and she had fieldwork students last semester and it went very, very well. She specifically is interested in starting early because she has some students who are struggling and she thinks would really benefit from having some small group sessions with somebody, but she doesn't have the capacity to do that because she already meets with the large group and with some other work groups and has to hold her office hours and prepare all her materials. And so this is where you could come in to lead some sessions with small groups to help them keep up on their work and help them with work they're struggling with. So that's our first site, and I anticipate we'll have some others because our sites who had students last fall, many of them emailed me and said that they would like to have students again because it was very helpful to them. They really appreciated our students. There's a lot of value that you can add to the setting right now during this pandemic, especially. So my fieldwork students are always great, but I think you're even more valuable right now because everybody is doing a lot of extra work and students are struggling. Some students are really struggling with the online formats. So as I send information, then let me know if you would like to be an early starter. That doesn't mean you have to put a ton of hours in this early in the semester, but you could get started. You could meet your teacher, meet your students, set up a schedule, and then start some of those hours. So you could spread some of that out if you wanted. As we get closer, I might just be making assignments. So I like to pose questions to students. Would you like to start early? Who's interested in this specific type of site? But then once we get going and I have to make assignments, then it gets to a point where I often then will just make the assignments based on what's left. So I ask when I can, but I can't always ask for your input. If you have something that you really need me to know, something special going on, some kind of special circumstance or need, let me know so I can take that into consideration. But otherwise, I will move along. So let me know if you have any questions. I would love to hold a session at some point for information, question, answer. And so I'm looking for a good time to fit that in our schedule. So you might see that coming up. But in the meantime, feel free to email me or set up a meeting. Or everybody in field is in 440. So you can pop into the 440 chat on Thursdays as well and ask your field questions if you would like. So that's all for now, and I'll talk to you later.